Right, this is going to be another episode of the Best Damn League Show, period. It's one of those rare episodes where I say period, I just remember it every now and then. Sometimes I see it on the screen, say what you see. That's a really dated reference there, but that's actually something on a very famous game show that they used to say back in the UK. You just say what you see. Shout out to that if Peter knows what I'm talking about. Like, see, I like to slip in a reference to him. Exact catchphrase. Look it up if you're a boomer. Look it up. It was, by the way, actually, ironically, a straight fire show as well. That was actually Ball. Had a little like graphical guy who did all like shit. Anyway, whatever. We're getting into the weeds here. Anyway, Peter's here. He's got like slight. It's almost the same lighting, but the mic is fixed again. We've got that routine. Yep. We're gradually moving forwards. And obviously, technically, that's actually sort of a metaphor for your life, Peter, because it's not actually about what you look like. It's about what's inside and what you have to give to the world and what you have to say and the effect that you have on people, you know. So we're just keeping it thematically reasonable. Now, our guest for this one is going to be Raqo, who is the coach of the Movistar KOI Fénix team. And the Phoenix part means that they are the Superliga team, if you don't know, guys. Obviously, that's slightly complicated because when people buy the LEC slots and they change the brand, etc., it means the team moves up in the same way as Carmine Corp used to be the team that was in the LFL, but now they're the team in the LEC, and now it's Carmine Corp Blue, and then similarly with Movistar, basically. Anyway, Raqo is a Dutch guy who is coaching this team. If you don't know, by the way, the team he is coaching does make me laugh, though, because it's one of those ones where it's like, oh, you're coaching this. I looked up, who's he coaching? His team is Frescovi, Unforgiven, and Treats. It's like, are you just working with all like real LEC players? That's a pretty good lineup right there, man. It's not bad for a Superliga team.
Yeah, we tried, we decided to take a different approach this year because we actually wanted to make the KOI the Superliga program very attractive. So we tried to build a roster to perform and put results. Which at the start of the year seemed like a logical approach, but didn't go so well so far. But that was the approach at the start. But yeah, we signed like very good players to just play for performance instead of development for this year, and that was like the decision we made.
And I was saying to you before we started, an actual underrated thing I'll give a compliment to in the ERLs is when everyone talks about the ERLs or like the level just below, and people big up like the LFL, the Superliga. I mean, it's not technically LER, but people even love the TCL because it had like, again, loads of LEC players. If I had to pick between the three, I would take the Superliga all day long because, spoiler, you get to live in Spain. It's like I told Peter, I don't think it's a coincidence, right, that no matter how much money comes into English football, I noticed the Brazilian and the Argentinian players tend to want to play in La Liga more than the Premier League, because you know what, crazy idea, maybe I'd like to live in like, you know, Valencia more than like Newcastle or something. I know it's a crazy notion, but so I don't blame you, Raqo. It sounds mega living in Spain, mate. That sounds like the place to be if you're going to do ARL work.
Oh yeah, it's good. Like I love that. I mean, I've been to Spain twice before I moved here. I went to Mallorca once and went to Barcelona, but this is my first time in Madrid, and it's lovely, to be honest. It's actually really good.
Oh, by the way, if you've never been on holiday, it's a classic that the British people are all in Spain. It actually is, unironically, it's one of those places a bit like Italy. You can't really overrate it. It actually is fire. Like, I would say definitely go there if you ever have, like, and by the way, also awesome places to go in sort of like the off-season when the weather isn't as great and it's a bit cheaper, because it's still pretty good weather in general. Right, let's get into the episode. Forget all this small talk. Here's the question, Raqo. What is good in LEC at the moment? What is good? What are you enjoying?
One thing I really like is that team investing in young talent like KC, Vitality Heretics, or KOI last year are actually performing really well. And I think it's really good for the longevity of the ecosystem. And I'm just super happy about that, because when you look, for example, a few years ago, I think there were some questions about the next wave of talent. But when you look right now at players like Caliste, Yikes, Qmont that are actually coming from Tier 2 and performing really well, I think it's super good for the league, and I think it's incredibly healthy.
No. Bit of a layup for you, Peter, but come on.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I love this one. Both of my points about rookies this week. So yeah. I mean, what I'll say is it's really good to see a lot of the people stepping up. But even I would say, obviously, Skimonklis, Knack, Stend, you know, all of these people having really good performances week in, week out. But even some of the less hyped rookies are doing pretty well. Like, I think Lotz had a good performance. I don't think he hard carries Giant X or anything, but like he looks like he belongs. And I think that generally the way that ERLs tend to go, from my experience, is it goes in cycles, right? So you have like there was one bumper year, for instance, when Larsen, Humanoid, Abadage, and Nemesis all came up together, and basically the quality of what generally happens is that there's a large bumper crop that comes up one year that is like really, really strong. And then basically it takes time for the next group of people to come up, but people keep trying to because the ERLs got a lot weaker now that all these people have been promoted. So it makes the next generation look stronger than maybe they are. You generally have the next couple of years being less strong. But it's good that not only did you have a good set of players that came up last year through Mad Lions, but also the fact that there's still more people continuing to like the fact that you have back-to-back years with really strong rookie sets is a really promising sign for the long-term future. That's what I say.
Okay.
I think it's also like very beautiful that there were teams willing to take massive risks. Like for example, last year Giant X was promoting Jackies, who was a player that didn't even play in any tier 1 ERL. Like he played in Hitpoint Master Czech League. Like I think he won there once and they got twice the second split. But like this guy came out of nowhere. It was actually quite funny because I had a friend who scrimped that guy once, and he's like, "This guy's good." And I started watching his VODs like 2.5 years ago, and I was like, "Oh, this guy is cracked." Even when I was at FlightBus 2 years ago, I told Papa Sweden like, "Yo, we need to look at this guy. Like, he might be good, you know." And then out of nowhere, he went to Giant X. I was like, "Oh, damn!" Like, I didn't expect that, you know. But like, sure. And this guy obviously came out of nowhere, and he's crazy, you know. Like he
Sure.
like, and it's the same like Camilo, for example, coming from Division 2 France, and teams are just willing to take risks. And I think that's super cool. Like this, you didn't see this like 4, 5, 6 years ago. You know, like players come out of nowhere and just going up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good because it shows that teams are casting their net wider. And like, I'll be honest, Kamalu is like a guy that I didn't even expect this guy to be this good, right? Like, I mean, I look at his VODs from last year. He's like not even standing out super strongly, at least for laning phase, in the LFL2. Like, I mean, I think Kensuke was better than him, but like in the league, but the fact that teams are willing to take those chances, I think is really strong. It also shows that teams are willing to cast their net wider, and it's promising for youngsters coming up now, because before, if you wanted to make it to LEC, there was a very clear route you had to go, right? You had to go to a weaker ERL, then use that to parlay into stronger ERL, do well at EU Masters, and only then are you proven enough to go to LEC. Whereas now it means that if you're like an 18-year-old, people are watching LFL2, people are watching, Polish League, people watching Italian League. It means you don't have to go and like sacrifice yourself to be in LFL or LVP to have that chance, right? Obviously, it helps your chance, right? Like if you go to if you're playing in Spain or France, you're playing better competition every week, but you don't have to, and that's a good sign for sure.
Yeah, for sure. It was also the same this year with FlightBus signing Gakos out of nowhere as their sixth man. Yeah.
No,
I also think as well, like, because this touches on a points that we've obviously unsurprisingly on a Peter Dun show discussed many times before, but we can do it in a different way, of course. So one way I would actually address this topic as well is, I also think the key thing that's changed for me is that, like, obviously before, like you said, because of that golden era that Peter was talking about with all the mid laners, people have obviously tried to get talents from like ERLs. But if you notice before, I think even if you listen to how people talked, it was so cynical. It really was just like, hey, I'm going to find the next Caps, but the implication, like in square brackets that wasn't said out loud, was like, but if I don't find Caps, just chuck them back on the scrap heap and look for the next Caps. So it was treated like some fucking deranged scratch ticket that you just buying over and over every day. Like, I didn't get the winner, throw that out. I didn't get the winner, throw that out. And so the problem is that was fucked up. Whereas now, what I actually like is, one, when they bring people into teams, they don't just drop you in the deep end and go, are you the next Caps? Or you're not, get the fuck out. First of all, you notice now, almost everyone gets at least 2 splits. In fact, if not the whole season now. That's a massive positive as well, because you've actually seen, we'll get to it later in this episode, if you look at teams like Vitality and Heretics who gambled on all the rookies, if they'd just cut all the people who had a dodgy first split, their teams wouldn't be in the position they are now, where both of them could have been playoff teams and have actually showed very good games against some of the best teams in the LEC in the first season. Like, that already shows, like, you got to give people time to develop into the LEC as well. And then also, I think another thing for me is, look, there's one aspect that in League of Legends you're actually quite lucky about, which is that, like, despite what Riot has said for the first 10 years of League of Legends, there are 5 set roles in the game, and everyone who's normal knows that, like, it's very unlikely that, like, actually your star player is going to be the support as opposed to, like, the ADC, for example. The traditional roles exist for a reason. So I will say, you do avoid one problem we have in Counter-Strike, which is in Counter-Strike, when people give, like, the young player or the academy player a chance, because the roles in that game are somewhat dynamic and you can switch between them, they tend to actually be very abusive in Counter-Strike and give, like, the rookie, who you bring in as a star, like, all the shit roles in the game, and then when he does badly, you go up, kick him out and get another guy. At least in League, you put people in the right roles. But even then, I actually think people have. I've actually noticed this, Peter. I think people now take way more of your approach than the approach I'm talking about before. Instead of trying to throw the rookie in the deep end and force him to be the next Caps, I do think some of these teams look like they do ease people into the lineup and give them, like, a little bit of chances to fail and, like, the odd chance to try things. I can actually tell you from behind the scenes without leaking too much stuff. When I would talk to Striker from BDS about people like Nuke, he even did this back in the day. Like, back in the day, by the way, people like Nuke from the RLs wanted to play all, the fucking Cassiopeias and all this, like, fucking carry shot, but he would, like, he'd give you, like, the odd game, like, in a split if you performed well on other things, if you know what I mean, to sort of, like, build up your confidence and make it so you're not just thrown in the deep. I think that part's, like, a big deal, because I do think, like, if you notice, I mean, he's saying it there, that the part of this is that you can now have sustainable roster building. It can't be that every season is like, right, musical chairs, who gets these spots and the rest of me are all out. You want it to feel like a real progression where you earned your spot from the RLs. We picked you because we know what sort of player you are. We're building you into the squad. And then, yes, obviously people who perform terribly are out. But if you still show some of the qualities we got you for, then we're going to build around that. What do you think on this, Peter? You obviously have something to say. Come on.
So I think it's also a generational shift.
Okay.
I think we're reaching the kind of era in Europe, which took a long time to happen in Europe, and I don't really have a good reading for why this is, where basically coaches had zero say in roster building, and
right.
there are some veterans who want to play with rookies. Like Inspired is a very good example of this, who's willing to give rookies like a long leash. But I would say that a lot of the pro players, especially the veterans that I've talked to, just the idea of playing with rookies is not something they even want to talk about at the start. So I think firstly you have more an org or coaches having more say in roster building. Not always. I mean, I would say on some of the orgs I've been on, there wasn't that much say in roster building from the coaching side, but I think firstly you have orgs and coaches having a lot more say in building rosters. So what that means is you have to have data, you have to have better scouting, and the people that don't have good data, the people that don't have good scouting very quickly get found out. But also I think that there's a lot more respect for the ERLs. I mean, if you look at the coaching lineups in LEC right now,
sure.
7 of those coaches are in LEC because out of the 10 are in because of the work that they've done in ERLs. They've done well in ERLs, got promoted because of it, and then found their way in LEC, right? The 3 coaches that don't fit that profile, obviously, Grabs and Dylan, who've been around literally forever, and Freddie, right? Coaches have been around literally forever. I mean, even Mac, I think Mac is one of the reasons he likes ERL so much is because he was an ERL coach. He's like the one who found the success in the ERLs and then used that to springboard his career later. But I mean, you look, Reha on Keiko, Melzed, Koi, Gilotto, okay, Gilotto's a mixture, but Gilotto...
It was technically last year in the RL, yeah, Superliga.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, he won LVP, right? Like, so he's kind of like, he was in LEC, then went back to ERL, found success in ERL, went back up, right? And I can just read off like the entire list of coaches. I'm not going to do that, but before, I would say that the shift compared to like in 2018, that's 7 years ago, you try to talk to an EU LCS pro at the time about this really hype rookie that you've seen, they don't even want to entertain the thought of playing with this guy, right? And I think it was the people like the humanoids, people like the Kazis, people like the people like that who were the ones who kind of fought against that kind of prejudice and kind of opened the floodgates for everyone else, right? Is what I would say. What I would say now, and now if people want, from what I heard, the players on Heretics at least wanted to play with Kamalu. Like they were really excited to play with Kamalu. Right. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, trying to get this guy into the league would have been like getting blood out of a stone. It would have been impossible, basically.
By the way, it looked like you were going to say something, Raqo. Do you have something?
No, I was just like,
Oh,
I just
okay.
completely
It's all
agreed.
good.
That just from experience, like, I mean, even like, you just see it like also in more Western leagues right now too. Like as Peter was saying, like for example, in our roster building, last year with FlyQuest, inspired like after the Joji Pyun and Danny roster in EG, like what, like the idea of Maso and Busio, like he was just like, that's fine. Like if they're talented players, great, you know, like no problem. And I think that's like, it's really beautiful, you know, because like as Peter said, like 7 years ago, telling people that there's going to be a player from LFL Division 2. I don't think even Division 2 existed at the time. Like it was just like random small tournaments. Like if getting a player like that in would be practically like literally impossible. Like there's just no way. Like if you're going to have to tell like an S tier European pro that you found this kid who's really good, to be like, nah, that's just not going to work. But now like it's like people are really receptive because it also like it's been proven to work time over time. Bloody in a few splits is looking like the best mid in the league by far. Caliste is top 380 carry already in his first year. Like Jackie's last year coming in looking like a top 5 mid, like coming out of nowhere. You know, like it's just crazy. And I think it's like, as I said, I think that's really good, especially with like the like obviously the general average salary and the ecosystem going down. Like it's like there are a lot of factors like actually enabling this and encouraging it. And I'm also happy that it's like with that also just working, you know, like KC playing 4 games against Humble Life on first stand and actually looking like a good European team and making competitive, like that is really nice, you know, because they have like, sure, Yak played in G2, but he's also not like a well-veteran European player. It's not like you're playing with Yankos or Oyoya or Razuk there at first stand, right? Like he's still like a quite fresh player, and the same for their AD and mid. Like that's like, to me, that's very, very, very promising that stuff like that's happening.
Yeah, I fully agree. And like Yike had a bit of a shocker at first stand. No, I remember that. So it was like the rookies who were having to literally stand up and be the main carriers of the team. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I completely agree.
Another thing I'll throw in as well, I thought as another angle is, I also think now they've finally established through people like Carmine Corp, BDS, like maybe even Vitality, like there actually is like an actual path to pro in the same org now. And that is a massive positive because I can tell you that's something in Counter-Strike where people are trying academy squads the last few years. That is the big night and day difference. If you're on the academy squad where you know all they ever do is just cynically sell you to another org, but you'll never be on the main team of your org, that just changes completely like how you view the academy system, because in that scenario it's actually going to be quite difficult maybe to get onto another team there. You might be stuck just only on the academy squad and feel like that's like the limit of where you can go. And even worse, the problem is if some like absolute like top 3 player in the world's in front of you in the main team, you know you're never getting that spot if you're the AWP or something. I actually feel in League now, if you play for like BDS, Heretics, Vitality, Carmine Corp, if you play in their LFL, their ERL team, LVP, etc., and you are really good, you actually know there's a real chance you might just be on the real team in the future. Like you might get to stay with the same coaching staff. Similar, by the way, you also might move up with some of your teammates. I think that also changes how people view the ERLs. Like it makes the ERLs a real path to pro. It's not just like poor man's LEC, you know.
Yeah, like this, like when I was interviewing rookies this offseason too, like I had 3 different players tell me, I want to go to an LEC team because I want to go up there internally, you know, and I just want to go to a team where I think their first team has the worst, like I'm competing against my worst opposition and I feel like I can overtake him. Like there are several rookies saying this, you know, like it's just like a realistic strategy. I remember, I don't know if it was this show or Sumner's Insight a few years ago where Inex said that about Forgiven in Schalke, for example. But like even still to this day, like like rookies are trying to make a calculated decision that way, just try to make their way up, and I think that also is very, very good.
Yep. And I think it also puts it as an expected kind of burden for because you know having an ERL team is a financial burden for teams, right? Like at the end of the day, you have a budget and you have to decide how much budget you're willing to allocate to your roster in ERLs, how much you're going to spend on player wages, you know, things on LEC. And there was a time I remember when G2 and Fnatic removed their like the requirement to have an ERL team was completely removed, right? And at the time, you know, G2 and Fnatic especially, but I call them out because obviously they're the top team, they're top teams in Europe. We're like, okay, fine, we don't want academy team anymore. We don't really care about it. We're going to remove it at the first opportunity because all we care about is LEC. And people at the time were kind of defending this decision. And for me, it's like a massive competitive disadvantage, you know? Like it really, really costs you when you don't have that talent pipeline and you're not closely integrated into the ERL team. You don't even need to have a good ERL team. Even if you have a bad ERL team that you're taking chances on tons of rookies, you at least get to scrim some of the other ERL teams. So you get to use it as a method of scouting. But we've seen time and time again that these long-term legacy orgs make the call not to have an academy team, and it burns them in the future, right? I just mentioned this in passing, but Cloud9, perfect example of it, right? Like they scrap their academy team, hurt them almost immediately, right? And I think it's taken a bit longer in Europe because G2 and Fnatic have had such a large like sitting advantage, but it's beginning to erode their competitive advantage, and I think that's a really, really good thing because it means you have to give a shit a bit about ERLs. It means you have to like have good scouting in Europe. You don't just have to have good scouts in Seoul and like I mean nobody's been signed except Bo from China, right? So you actually have to give a shit about watching the ERLs and following the storylines in those leagues and following the players in those leagues. And I think that can only be a good thing in the long term for the European ecosystem. So I think that's always been Europe's competitive advantage. The way that Europe is going to beat Korea and China in the long term, if they ever do, is because the ERL system is so robust, it's so strong. It's a good way to forge real competitive experience. You compare EMEA Masters, the amount of pressure on you compared to like Challenger League, LCKCL, it's completely different level. And also, it's a good development ground for coaches. Like the advantage that Europe has is the experience and the development pathway for coaches in Europe is so much better than any other region in the world. And again, that's a long-term competitive advantage that Europe has. Obviously, we don't see it now. We only see it beginning to have an impact now. But if Europe is ever going to be a top two region, top one region, it's going to be because of ERLs. It's not going to, we had our G2 era, but that wasn't built on, right? Why wasn't it built on? It's because it was one super team that found that synergy together, but it's not a recipe for long-term success. But if this generation of players and coaches can find long-term success, this is your ticket. This is your ticket to the long-term success. So yeah. So obviously, I love rookies. I love ERLs. More of it, please.
Also, by the way, to tie together those points, that's also why I think if you run your ERL squad, but with an actual view that like this player one day might be in my squad, essentially, I'm almost doing some like boomer take on dating of like, don't just be promiscuous, actually date people with a view to marrying them, like try and pick the person who has the qualities you would want and test that. That's almost what you're doing if you do an ERL squad properly, because think about it, right? If you pick someone up as a gamble from an ERL when it's not someone you've worked with, you're going to have to do, like you're saying, the scouting is going to have to be, but the best scouting would be, how about just have them in your org for a year, playing in the other team where you can even talk to the other coach or even actually go and coach that player and have him scrim internally against your player. It's just the most obvious way to try him out, isn't it? Like, it's like the best possible tryout you could ever have if you do it right. So no, I think it's a great point. I actually, because notice how what we did was you changed it from how it usually was over the years. People used to just go, rookie's good, and that was it. There was no reasoning why. But I agree, this is like an ecosystem point basically about how people have changed all levels of the system, so that it's actually selecting the best talents and then bringing them through and developing them, which is how, these are all the buzzwords everyone used before, but it's actually real now. It's not just some fucking bollocks that someone says on a panel with some esports panel. Which my joke is like, who are these people that go to those esports fucking like panels? Because the rest of us are all too busy working. Like, they're doing about 500 of those where I'm like, it's like a panel like the future of esports journalism. I am esports journalism. I don't even know who any of these people are. But anyway, I'm getting into some side shit there. Right, Peter, it's time for your point. So what on earth? Yep. By the way, this is fucking, I can't even believe you picked this one. So hit me with it. What is your good point here? This blows my mind. I'm ready for this. I'm locked in for how the fuck this is a good point.
I deliberately dodged this point for weeks because it would have been so boring to do this, talk about this every single week. But yeah, my good point is Caliste, right? Like, I did my glazing on Friend, I did my glazing on Skewmon, but I deliberately avoided talking about Caliste because it would be boring to talk about him.
Okay, what's changed this week then? What's changed this week?
Yeah, I mean, like this week, well, firstly, this week he had a really, really great homestand. Remember, this guy is an 18-year-old kid playing super, super well in front of his French crowd. I think Canna maybe played better than him over those two series, but at worst the second best player, maybe the best player on his team. Doesn't feel any of the pressure. But here is the thing that tells you that Caliste has already made it. Because for Caliste now, we're at the point where we're saying regular season doesn't matter. Regular season performance doesn't matter. It's only
Still a rookie. Yeah, it's pretty legit. Yeah.
Second split rookie in May, and already like because for a rookie, regular season obviously matters to every other rookie that I can think of. Even the humanoid Larsens, like when they were at their best, it's already the regular season performance obviously mattered a lot. But with Caliste, we're no longer saying that, right? Like he can play as well as he wants. It's just expected now. And obviously, we're going to say, I think we can talk about this about Coming Corp's chances in playoffs. But what matters is, it doesn't matter how well you performed in these last 5 weeks, even though you performed insanely well. What matters now is show that you could do this consistently in playoffs, especially against Fnatic, right? And that to me is a sign that this guy is. The fact we're not even using the same framework to talk about this guy as we do for most rookies is demonstrates already how good he is, right? And So all I'm going to say is playing really, really well, played even better than usual at his homestand. I mean, obviously he has all the KC blue wall, cheerleading for him already. So I feel that he doesn't need additional voices cheerleading for him. But but obviously another really insane week, and there have been people whose performances have dropped in front of the large live audience, and he didn't, right? So another good sign there as well.
What do you think?
Completely agree. Like sometimes like some players just have like this aura to them, this kid has aura, like he is real, like I mean I have a massive sweet spot for young exciting carry roles, so either mid laners or ADs, so like the Vladis, Jackies, the Caliste, like players like Masu or Danny, like in NA at the time, for example. But like for me, like there's so much confidence already in the way he plays, like when like one of the favorite things about KC is actually to me like how they play River around Dragons, like how they hold spots, like how they defend lines, how they defend space. Like seeing Caliste on Varus just like laugh in people's faces, just auto attacking and like supports, just because he's like, if you go me, you're gonna lose everything, like he's like squeezing so well. Like I think that is amazing. Like I sometimes it's like almost a little bit unbelievable to me, like this kid can be so young, so talented, so much confidence and play so well. I don't know, I love it. Like this I love it so much, like it's so good. Like he has everything going for him. I feel like he's also in the same org where he got brought up. Like everything, it's just like a Cinderella story. Like it's just perfect,
He's also fucking shot calling. He's shot calling at 18, like primary shot calling. It's ridiculous.
Sure. No, by the way, I'll say, I think this player, it's funny because I didn't watch him when he was in the RLs. And so I was one of those people who was like thinking like, the problem is you've heard a million people get overhyped coming out of the RLs. And by the way, especially from the fucking Carmine Corp org, that was one of the most criminal ones because they have such a rabid fan base. But this player actually not only lived up to expectation, I don't think I can say he exceeded it because they implied he was going to be like faker on day one. So they actually made it almost impossible for me. But I tell you what, if you put normal like EU expectations, he might actually be the best rookie that's ever come into the LEC. Like it's actually like you can have that real discussion. Like because if you think of the other ones, you automatically think of the people who won the championship. Like the Recklesses of the world. They came into teams with the giga veterans like Soaz and fucking Expecki and like the most fucking unbelievable players. Or they came in the best orgs. Like this guy actually came into what? Remember in terms of like where the org's positioned, people would probably expect him to be more mid-table. You look at some of the other players in the roster. Nobody said this lineup was the clear number one coming into the year. Like there's plenty of other factors had to work out, but I think individually, like what's to complain about, put it that way. Like I'm with you, Peter. You almost have to frame it. This is actually why when you hype people, you got to be careful. You almost have to frame it as like, I really do have to compare him to the best rookie to ever play the game in LEC to find like, where's he falling down? Where's he having issue? Where can he improve more? Because he's already like basically exceeded all expectations for performance, ability. But even think of this last week, that fucking outplay he made against Hans Sama was like, if I took those nameplates off and I just instead wrote the nameplates of like fucking like Viper and aiming or something, you'd all be losing your mind on Reddit going like, this is the fucking player of the year. Like, that was fucking nuts, mate, because that plays into what we're talking about. There's players who come in, the problem is you get rookies that have a lot of confidence, but oftentimes it doesn't match their game. Like, Adam's confidence would make you think he's Canna, but the problem is then he's Adam in the game. Like, Caliste has the confidence, but actually it's matched by being some, like, fucking Western Uziani. He actually is cracked out of his mind. He's unbelievable, and you can see as well, like, here's the other thing. He really does broach that line for me where it's like, it isn't even arrogance, mate, because when you actually can back it up as consistent as it is just confidence. It is actually just, no, you actually are better than these guys. And it actually reminds me, if people want to know, of a quick story I've got for you about when Caps came into the LEC, because Caps told me this in a Reflections interview like 3 months ago or something. Basically, he said when he came into LEC, he wasn't totally delusional. He didn't actually think he was going to be the best, but he was very confident. So his premise was, okay, Perks is the best, but I'm better than all the rest after that. That's what I feel like Caliste came in like. I think he came in like, okay, maybe Hans Sama's number one, right? You could be number one and even look like that for most of the first split. But I guarantee he thinks he's as good as or better than Upset and all the rest of them. And by the way, so far, I can't say he hasn't proven it. He's fucking looked awesome. And he's even, like we say, he's even at all the normal points that the rookie's supposed to fail. You're supposed to fail when you make the finals of the first split. You're supposed to fail at the international tournament. He actually hasn't. I actually have to say the rare failure, he looked maybe not that good in the upper bracket final of LEC, but who gives a shit after the finals, by the way? He was dynamite. At first stand, he wasn't the reason they were losing the games, mate. He was doing really fucking well. Like, I actually think, no, again, you actually have to really nitpick to find anything negative to say about this player.
I mean, basically, who would you say has been the best rookie into the LEC? Caps, right?
It's got to be. I think that's probably number one.
It has to be Caps.
I think it's Caps and Records will be number 1 and 2 for me, probably.
Exactly, but like I think his rookie year so far, we're only, maybe Casey flavor out in the first.
Yeah, we don't know what summer, sure.
But right now, his trajectory is ahead of Caps in Caps.
And by the way, if he does something at MSI, Peter, like if he actually like wins you a series or like gets you some games or something, I think he might just be number 1 for that. He might just be number 1.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it sucks for me because, I want to talk about like a really interesting rookie class. I want to talk about Knack, I want to talk about Stend, I want to talk about...
yeah.
No. But like the, I wanna hear about all these people that nobody's heard of, and instead, it's just. Yeah, it's just.
But it's where we had the same thing happen last year in Counter-Strike, mate, which is you had all these really good players who were rookies came along, and it was a waste of time because the player called Donk was not just a rookie; he was like the player of the year. So it just ruins the whole like rookie discussion because number 2, number 3, the joke is even there. It's like, don't even waste time voting for me. It's him. Like it almost feels like that on this one. I'm with you, mate. Like if you actually took him out the equation, you'd have a really fun discussion about who the rookie of the split is. You could do some bullshit angle that it was Stend or something like that. We could have all sorts of fun. Now we can't. Sadly, it's just unanimous in it. He wins. He wins this one, mate. Yeah. Speaking of which, though, this ties perfectly into what my point is going to be. Peter touched on it. I think now is the perfect time. Bear in mind, we don't know what will happen yet in playoffs. My good point is Canna, but in context of his career. Like this year, Canna has been an actual revelation because I watched this guy his entire career in LCK, by the way. Like I remember when he was on T1 and then when he had that like cursed Damwon period. And his problem was all the years he was on the elite Korean teams were the years where he was just essentially always filling the shoes of some like Hall of Fame player who played that position, like Khan or fucking, in this case, Nagori, like people who were like already were world champions and were like considered like tracking to be the best like in their roles. And so his problem was he always was considered like lesser and always got trashed by fans. And then if you look at the way it ended at the end of his time there, he even had some like scandal if people don't know how he left T1. And basically, I'm telling you, I actually think this is what's mad. If it wasn't for that insane clusterfuck at the beginning of last year in Carmine Corp, where by summer they had to like fire half the team and then brought in all the mercenaries. Because remember, the mercenaries they brought Vladdy in because it was just like, you want to play LEC, don't you? Closer came in, which is just like, well, I guess you're available. And then this guy was the way to pick up a volume. Like, how did they even get in contact with Canada to pick him up? Why does he want to join? But, mate, if he hadn't joined that team, I'm almost certain right now he would be at like the cursed level of like Summit or something. He'd be playing in Brazil or fucking Japan. And that would be an absolute travesty because actually, from watching him this year in Carmine Corp, I think if anything, he should be thinking like the opposite way. He should probably be back in like Korea in a year, mate, and be on like an actual real team. Like this guy could be on like KT Rolster or something. Like, he's really good. And not only is he good, mate, he is good in all the ways normally that like the import player to LEC isn't. Like when I think of people I have hyped the fuck out of, like fucking Photon, right? he had his flaws. He had certain aspects where he couldn't connect with the team or outside the lane. None of that exists with Canna, mate. He can play the carries and he's fucking sick, by the way. He even does the meme of like the actual Asian carry on the Jace or something like, or the Rumble or something, where the fucking Westerners still can't play that shit for some reason. Then also he can play the weak side appropriately like a true Korean player. And then lastly, he actually, even unlike the Photons of the world, has pretty decent fucking macro too. Like he knows where to go and where to position. Like, this guy, if you didn't know this person was Korean, you would just think it's the best Western top laner, mate. Like, I think he's like unbelievably good. And like I say, to me, he's like a revelation because I don't know anyone who had this guy who would have said he would be like number one top laner. Whereas I actually get the feeling, one of the reasons why people are so down on Broken Blade is I get the sense from talking to people, everyone thinks this guy's the best top laner now, Canna. Everyone just has him as their consensus number one top laner in LEC. So what do you think, Raqo? Where you at on Canna? What do you think of him?
I mean, I'm like a massive fan. I think also like when Canna came up in LCK, it was like a time where the Korean top laners were incredibly good. It was Nagar in his prime, Khan just retired. Like these players were obviously sensational at the time. And I feel like sometimes in certain Korean roles, like certain rookies come up almost at a bad time because of the talent pool, the role's just so strong. And but what you say is like completely true, right? I feel like a player like that, after like kind of bumming out in LCK, often ends up in Turkey, in the LLA, in Brazil, Japan, leagues like this. And I mean, I also like, to be honest, like my reaction when KC signed Canna last year, I'm like, there's no way this. Why the fuck would they sign this guy? Like that makes no sense. Like that he was like in Korea, like in LCK, like he was like, to me, very underwhelming. A lot of very random mishaps, depth in lane, picks on side, like misplaying.
No, he's kind of a meme at the time, right? Wasn't he? Well, I kind of make fun of him, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, there were like I remember like we were even like joking about it over in NA that like why is Kana going to K? Why did they sign that guy? Like it makes no sense, right? But now like obviously like we're a year later, and this guy like honestly looks like the best top player in IC. Like I don't think it's very close for now. Sure, I think Broken Blade this year has been underperforming due to his standards in prior years, but I'm a massive Kana fan right now too. Like this guy, like there are not a lot of like Western teams right now that utilize their Jace well, or like in general, just like these slow holding spots and play poke comps. But like KC, like just all of their players like are so good at it, and a lot of their success also comes from Kana's Jace. Like it's just he's so good at it, and even like just playing on like his Ornn or his Thion when he's picking champs like this, like he's still looking absolutely fine. And even at first stand against like let's say this series against Zeus, I don't think this guy looks sure. Like Zeus is one of the best players, if not the best player in the world right now. But I don't feel like he was looking like historically. If you look at some of our Western tops going up against like S+ tier Korean top laners, that was not pretty. There was some series just the reason why we just lost. You know, like think about the Shy in Prime, Nuguri in Prime. Like these series were just unplayable sometimes just because of their top lane advantage. But it doesn't really look like that much right now. You know, and sure he is a Korean player, but like I completely agree. Like this guy, like is getting to a point in his career where he actually can start thinking about trying to get back to like a top LFK team or trying to make it back. You know, because like one thing I do know actually from a lot of Korean players that I've spoken to or have like interacted with in the past years over in America, that a lot of their goals often actually are to kind of try to make it back to LFK. Like they often actually because they idolize it massively. Like I don't know, like if like you've spoken to a lot of Korean players sharing the same sentiment, Peter, but like that's from my personal experience. But they idolize FK completely. They didn't even care if BF or like if DNF is like a bad team. They watch the team religiously and they think these players are really good. They respect it so much and they want to go back no matter what. I don't know if this is the case for Kana, but like he's almost getting to a point in the conversation where like it is reasonable to start thinking about that if you want to do that because he looks so good. Like a good example, for example, was Rich right now playing in Dignitas last year and now just playing back in Korea again. And like these players, like Rich looked fine in LCS, in my opinion, for example, you know, but Kana's looking like a few steps ahead, you know, like he's looking really good. And I could totally see like a team like KT, BFX that are just looking to like upgrade their top laners, like should most definitely consider if they want to do that, right? But I think Kana is the real deal. Like he is back, you know, and I like he's getting like to me like I feel like we finally get to see like the reason why these like tier 1 LCK orcs picked him up at the time. Actually,
yeah, I was grinning and grimacing there because I'll say it. I'll say the thing. You know a team that needs a top laner in LCK. Maybe T1.
I didn't want to say it. I was thinking about it. I was saying like, yeah, maybe DNF, BFX.
The
like
problem with that
KT.
one is, though, I actually addressed this on some of the insight. Even though to us, if we're watching LEC, that is actually potentially a move I would consider. The problem you'd have there is, one, like I said, the way he left T1, those fans hate him. Yeah. And then secondly, LCK fans don't watch LEC. I'm sorry, they just don't. So to them, unfortunately, they don't know he had this whole renaissance that we know he had. Like to them, I know it sounds harsh, guys, but to them, LEC may as well be CBLOL. That's just what they think, man. They get to have that elitism, Peter, when they win worlds every year. Like they just get to have that, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's like they pick, like I have my favorite Brazilian players I like to watch.
Yeah, exactly.
They pick their favorite, token EU players they like to watch.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously, he seems to be settling well. I would say 80% of Koreans that I've interacted with, or that I've interacted with people who've interacted with them, fit that archetype. I think there's like a 20% that maybe for cultural reasons didn't fit well into Korea.
Yes.
And people historically, people like Insect, people like the Shy, people like people who wanted something else from their coaching structure, maybe a bit more individualistic, maybe a bit more hockey and things like this, who didn't fit so well.
I don't know. There's a bunch of people, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But I literally don't know what archetype Canna is, so I can't make that judgment. But what I will say is, the funny thing is, I like to glaze KC management, but I think they got lucky on Canna, because the person that they wanted, if you believe the rumors, was Thanatos, and C9 came in and
who, by the way, is much more like the Photon-esque top laner, where they have the sick mechanics, and you can see why you get them, but then you watch them in the game and you're like, can this guy even speak English, is what you almost feel like, because they don't seem like they connect with the team. I know what you mean. But that player was way more hyped. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and sure. I mean, it's, in a sense, it shows the depth of their scouting, that they saw something in Canna that, frankly, I would say 95% of other people didn't see. But he wasn't even their first choice, right? And the fact that he's fit in, because we were talking about, Canna having the career trajectory Canna could have had, but basically he didn't play for the first half of that year. He was like one of the people that was just randomly available. They gave him a shot, and it's worked out. Sometimes you gamble, and sometimes your gamble pays off. But I mean, the fact that he is this good now, it's surprising, because he's ironed out a lot of the weaknesses that you saw in his game when he was playing in Korea. But also, I think that he knows that he got one. Like sometimes in your career, you just resign yourself to, I'm just gonna sit out the rest of my career. I'm gonna be a journeyman for the rest of my career. And he got his shot. He got his shot to not just be a journeyman for the rest of his career, and to actually be on the top team. And he's grasping it with both hands. So credit to him, right? Because he has developed in a way that a lot of Koreans that come to Europe don't develop, right? Because I still think he has a few weaknesses when he doesn't have priority in lane. I think he wants to fight a lot in lane. But besides that, he's fixed a lot of his weaknesses. So fair due to him.
Okay, right. If we now move on, what is going to be your bad point, Raqo? What are we going with here? What you don't like at the moment?
Okay, this is like a little bit specific to LEC itself, not to the teams or the players. But for me, the sheer number of tag passes in LEC is getting completely out of hand and becoming a complete joke.
Yes.
It's not only just frustrating for the viewers, which is the most horrible part, but even for competitors. Like, the thing is, Peter knows this too. Like, already, let's say when a team is playing scrims and enemy team for whatever reason has to pause 5 to 6 times, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, the players already lose their minds, right? They're like, what is this? Like, after pause, they're like, oh, I got completely lost. Like, I can't track their tempo anymore. I don't know where they could be. But let alone on stage, like, if you compare League of Legends to any traditional sports, like, let's say in football or whatever, like, it's quite common to just have like a break, and like we revisit, like we kill the momentum of the game. But they're like in League, like it's such a it's very momentum based. Like there's like often flows in the game, and there are a lot of players that also like really adapt to this well, where they just get into this mode in the game and they're tracking everything that's happening and they're in sync. Like the moment when this happens and they get snapped out of it, like they actually get lost in the sauce. Like it's actually quite bad from experience. And the thing is, like, I was thinking about this yesterday before I went to bed. It's like, is there any sport, like traditional sport, that's not like any esport where it's normal to have like small pauses, or like where they don't have pauses, and the only thing that I can think of is kind of like Formula One. Imagine that after like 30 rounds, they would just like everyone just stop driving and we're just gonna chill for a bit and like quickly drink some water and revisit and keep going. Like that could never happen, you know? Like it just doesn't work like that. It's like a short pit stop, get new tires and keep going, right? But like the flow kind of stays the same for most of the game, and especially in League, like especially how the game has developed and like how important like being in sync with tempo and tracking tempo and all these things and just being in the flow of the game, how important that is. Like having these tech pauses, not only for viewers, this is horrible, right? But also for competitors and on the team side and for the players, like this is very, very, very troubling. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just making assumptions. I assume because of the budget cuts and like there's less staff there and like there's a lot of things going wrong. Like I can only assume why this is happening, right? But it's getting to a point where this is becoming sheer ridiculous. Like this is just not normal anymore. I think it's getting to like it's actually unacceptable. And as I said, not only for the viewers but even for competitive and players, this is just like this is really bad. This is very bad.
Yeah, I agree. So I've got a really perfect example of this. I think there's some players that really care about momentum and, you know, for following their thought flow. I think really matters. I can think of a perfect example of this, which is I remember a very specific Heretics versus G2 game at the end of like summer in 2023, where there was like literally a 40-minute pause because there was the game was almost over. You know, VTO was fighting 1v1 against Caps in base. There was a bug with Cassiopeia, or it wasn't. It was a visual bug. It wasn't like a thing, but he got stunned when he felt that he shouldn't have been stunned, and basically he died in the 1v1 in base, and Heretics had just basically aced G2 on the Nash, and we're going to take Nash, and but they'd lost they lost VTO in base, and it was a pause, and it was like a 40-minute pause whilst the referees tried to work out what was going on, and this was 30 minutes into the game, right? And I remember the entire team were like, okay, you know, we just got the ace. We know exactly what we need to do. G2 in a really bad position. Do not engage. Do not play fast. Just play slow. Like, just, you don't need to go for it. And I'm hearing them repeat this over and over again for like 40 minutes because, you know, the referees let you talk after a certain amount of time. And they're all saying to each other, we're not going to engage. We're going to really play slow. You know, we're going to do like... you know, we're going to play the team fight to our limits, and we're not going to we're just going to really play slow and play calm, right? And then as soon as the pause pauses, they all fucking engage, they all die, and the game is over, G2 take the Nash, and then like, and you know, they've completely outscaled. And, you know, it's very funny to joke about this kind of thing afterwards, but it really does make a difference. And there's some players that impacted much worse than others. But I mean, I think it's not so much about the competitive integrity; it's just about the professionalism of your product, right? Like it's about being taken seriously, and you know you can't be taken seriously if this is happening as much as it is. And I think it kills hype. I think it impacts teams, it impacts results, and it impacts legacies, right? And that is a bad thing.
Okay. I will say on this one, like as someone who watches multiple esports, it is really bad how often it happens in League. By the way, it happens actually in all the regions as well, like LCK has them as well. But I agree, LEC seems like it's the worst one, which is why it's like what Raqo's saying, like that does feel like there's a fucking sync up between the fact that last year they laid off all those people, including like observers and people who like did actual like on the ground, like fucking hands-on work like that. That makes me a little bit concerned there. And also the big problem you have is I see why now you tried to frame it around like sports that don't have breaks in, because what people are going to miss is they're going to think of like obviously the joke is in something like Counter-Strike, a break between the rounds, you even have timeouts, etc. Like, but that's because these sports work in a different way. The reason why I think that breaks, technical pauses in League are actual cancer to the game is because the game is supposed to be one living continuous entity from the beginning until the Nexus explodes. There's not supposed to be in any context in League any kind of a timeout, and that actually does completely destroy the the competitive integrity of the outcome of that game when you have a pause in it. Because first of all, like, you can always think of like really famous examples of where like a pause happened like 1 second after a fight because like, you know, like an alt bogged or something. But then like essentially if you were to unpause it, they're going to like re-engage or something. I hate it when you have the pause like that lasts 10 minutes. So for 10 minutes, you're all just thinking about what you're about to do when you unpauses. Like, that's fucking OP. That can completely change who wins that fight. Whereas if that fight plays out in real time, no one, as I've always pointed out, no one can really do the team fight breakdown of Jat live. That's just some shit you play off instinct, and later you figure out, oh, that's why I did that move. You don't really like, have the time and then I'm going to do that. It's not like that fucking Sherlock movie, Peter, where it was like, first he comes in the room and then I did disarm him, and he imagines it all like in his brain before it plays out. Like, that's what fans think, but it's not true. Put it this way, I won't say who, but one of the best players of all time from Europe even told me that like that's actually an angle he thinks that commentators are overrated, because he said he would watch back VODs of LEC, I won't say who it is, and that the commentators would be glazing him like, look at this genius move here, like he just probes the fog of war, and he even says I wasn't doing that at all, like I was just randomly walking around and then like I just got a playoff or something, but like even the commentators are sort of imagining I'm doing better shit than I am. So the point is, I don't think people realise how messy a League of Legends game is. I always say the reason why I think coaching is such a premium in League is because you have to sort of just set your principles into the guys and then just hope they do it. You don't have a chance. Like, even in football, you can shout from the sideline and say what you want people to change. You don't have any option like that in League. So the worst thing, in my opinion, is think about how timeouts are used in sports, like the most obvious examples, like the NFL and the NBA. You actively use timeouts in those sports, by the way, to do what happens in these games, to cool people off. Like, if the other team's super hot, you do a timeout so they like think about it for a little bit, that they don't have the momentum flowing. Obviously, the joke is when you're the one who's on the hot roll, you don't want to think about it. You want to just keep playing, don't you? And keep going and keep hitting them and keep hitting them. And also, you sometimes call the timeout for similar reasons, to get your team back in the game. Like, think about what's happening, guys. Like, take a breath. Like, all these factors are happening, but another thing is, it's willy-nilly. We don't know who's getting these benefits of these matches, so it's also really hard in history to remember, oh, there was a pause in that one, and that changed who won the game. Like, you don't remember that in your brain. In fact, in your brain, you don't remember there was a timeout. You just see the result on Leaguepedia, and you go, you won the game, congrats. So I think the obvious example would be, I actually think the role most affected by this is stuff like jungler. Imagine the feeling of being trapped behind in a game as a jungler, where it's going to shit, and you can't get any of your solos off with a guy, and then you're like, the whole time, if you don't know, guys, it feels like you're drowning the whole time. You're like, I've got to get a breath, and then you just get a free like 10-minute timeout, basically, where they get like thumb the fox up in the game. You get to sit for 10 minutes and just think like, what should I do when I come back? And like, look, to be fair, at least they do very well police, way better than other games, by the way, not talking in the tech timeout. I actually appreciate that they do a good job with that in LEC, and I don't see people doing the thing that drives me crazy in Counter-Strike, because in Counter-Strike you're also not supposed to talk in a technical timeout. You're not supposed, but I do see players fucking talking all the time like that because they get away with it. I actually appreciate that, but I do think, I agree, I think it's way too much. And the last thing I'll have to tie it to is this. I do get concerned that this is the factor of like, the game is very old. Remember, this game literally came out 16 years ago. So unfortunately, part of me does worry that it's just a really old game working with tech that didn't, remember, you didn't have these PCs back when this game was written. And you've essentially done the spaghetti code thing of like, the guy who even does the latest update on League, he wasn't even there for the first 500 updates. You know what I mean? So you are working with like someone else's code, and then the joke is, if you know how coding world works, they don't fucking annotate any of that shit. You're just going in there fucking, what the hell? You open a door, tentacles fall out and shit. You just have to figure everything out, mate. You have no idea. So sadly, it's also a factor of the fact we're not on League of Legends too, I imagine. Because I do look at other esports. I don't know any other esport that has many tech pauses as this. And as you say, they're not just like a 30-second tech pause where you plug a wire in. They have the ones that last like 20 minutes and you're just like, what the fuck? This is why, by the way, people like Monty, and I always agree because I was always a VOD watcher anyway, mate, every time I watch a VOD and I see one of those breaks and I just skip forward in the YouTube VOD 15 minutes and I don't have to experience it, I feel so bad for people who watch live. I just think this would be such a dog shit experience. Like, I just get to skip it. Like, whew, I just look on that time like, oh, they're playing again. I can't imagine having to sit there and actually watch the game. That'd be a fucking nightmare. You're just wasting hours of your time. Yep. It also does put you off the product as well, quite frankly.
The reason I mentioned the legacy thing is because there was a situation at Season 2 Worlds, right? With
of course,
made a huge difference with it was
World Elite CLG. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
It was basically, people don't know, it was like a best of 3 that ended up having like about 5 games, and no joke, in like 3 of these games, one team was like winning, and then the game would just get reset. And I just remember thinking back in the day, forget about the results of this. Like, both teams basically won and lost this series. This is bollocks at this point in time. Like, how could, because I agree with you, how are you supposed to like mentally reset when you're actually winning in the game and they just tell you that doesn't count? Like, what? That tilt the shit out of loads of really good players, mate.
You can tell when boomers talk about season 2 worlds for this, but you expect a better quality, you know.
Yeah, of course. That was in 2012, for
but,
fuck's sake. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. I actually want to see where the fuck Peter's going to go on this one. So, Peter, what is your bad point for this week?
So my bad point actually for this is Lyncas, right? And you know, I've been a massive Lyncas defender for since the start. You know, I think we mentioned this I think in the first or the second show. But if you asked me 18 months ago who I thought were going to be the 3 future LEC stars, you know, that were coming up for me around, I would have said Caliste, Alvaro, Lyncas, right? I would have said those were the 3. And you know, you look at Alvaro's inconsistent still, but you know, he's somebody that needs a belt there, and Melzet obviously is on parental leave, so he's not there to give him the belt. But he's been like a top 3 support in the league. Obviously, we talked about Caliste already, but Lyncas is the one who hasn't lived up to his potential. And yes, there's mitigating circumstances. Yes, he had to play with Hilisai. Yes, he's had to play with Niski. Sure, okay, but you know, there are, you know, at some point you have to go and step up and be the guy if you want to succeed long term in the LEC, you know. And you look at, he's had 12 months. A lot of these rookies, people like Nak, have had like 4 months, 5 months, and generally you look at players like Kazi, players like Humanoid, they're already making impact in their first playoffs, right? Like, okay, no Caliste, no Vladdy. Okay, let's not talk about KC, but let's talk about, you know, Kazi in his first playoff split. He's beating the legendary G2, right? Like on a team full of rookies. You look at somebody like Jojo.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Jojo,
Yo-Yo, right? Yeah, it's like these guys are the guys that become the superstars of the league, right? And it's not everybody has to be a superstar, but if you are the guy who is going to be the superstar, you are making an immediate impact right from the start, right? And he's had so many chances to go and do this. And I went and rewatched that Heretics Vitality game, and yes, again, there's another excuse. Mac did his tweet where he said no excuses. So I'm going to make the excuse for Vitality, which is that they were in France. They had to do a travel day, and then they had to go and play their playoff, best of 1 playoff, you know, the day after a travel day, which fucking sucks, right? Like, but again, it's just like another excuse to the Lyncas fire. Like, this is a guy, at some point he needs to step up, and sure, he's been unlucky so far in his career, but like, at some point you have to make your own luck, and at some point you have to be the guy who your teammates can rely on. And that game was really, really close. Vitality were getting Vitality should have won that game until like Carlson got his like god tier flank right at the end. But the reason the game didn't progress is he kept getting caught multiple times, like over invading the enemy jungle, not like playing calm. And you know, this is a problem Vitality have, right? Which is, this is a team that doesn't play calm. Frankly, this is a team that they lost 2-0 to Rogue. If they lost 2-1 to Rogue, they wouldn't even be playing a tiebreaker. It would have been GX versus Heretics in the tiebreaker, right? Because of game time, right? If I understand the rules properly, which
I believe so.
Yeah.
Don't worry, that point will be coming later, but it's all good. Keep it on Lyncas for now.
Yeah, but you know, maybe if they lose 2-1 to Rogue instead of 2-0 to, maybe they don't lose to Rogue. You know, maybe that's an option.
I know,
too,
crazy idea.
Maybe don't lose to Rogue, and then you just make playoffs. But the reason they're losing these games a lot of the time is that they're not calm, right? They're not calm, they're not composed. Things go to shit at some point, and you know, it's part of what makes this team such a dangerous team, but it's also like the Achilles heel of this team. But at some point, you know, Lyncas has been a player that has thrived on teams which have been structured and ordered, which has allowed him to be flexible, right? But if sometimes you have to create that environment for yourself, and clearly he's not being able to do that, and I think that that's a shame, right? And I think that this guy is the reason why I'm going harder on Lyncas versus somebody like Paris is, frankly, I didn't rate Paris that highly as like,
Okay.
I thought he would be a good pro, but I didn't think he would be like a star of the league. But whereas Lyncas I did think would be a star of the league. But at some point with Lyncas, you just need to like create your own luck. You need to create your own positive environment, and you need to not be a passenger. And you know, Niski is a veteran, but he's a rookie support, right? Like he's a rookie in that support role, and sometimes you need to be the one who is guiding him, right, rather than having him guide you. And I think I think this is a guy, he's been very, very unlucky, like I said, on Vitality, but with the support situation, you know, support jungle being so important. But I think that at some point you have to stand up and take responsibility for your own fate, right? And I hope and, I would have loved to see him in playoffs. I saw glimpses of him being really, really good this year. But he needs summer is really, really important, because by the end of summer, he will have been in LEC for 18 months. And 18 months is a very, very long time, right? For somebody to have not made an impact yet.
I agree. I was also very high on Lyncas already since his ERL split on the NLC team. What was it?
Yeah.
Dusty, I think it was.
Yeah.
Dusty with Kerberos and Backlund. And already when I saw him play at the time, I was like, okay, well, this kid is good. So I started talking to him. I started watching his VODs. And there are not often rookie players who are leading so well in game. I think at the time it was even 17, 18 years old. And it reminded me of rookies coming up like Inspired and Ayoya, who are just complete captains from a rookie position, And I think, like, to me, junglers that have this quality and are also very talented players are always mega interesting to me. So, and Lyncas was also one of the pieces when I was when we were doing the roster building for Fly LCS for 2024. Like, our jungle prospects, it was between Inspired and Lyncas, both of them most interesting players. Like, we were very, very high on them. And especially like after, like, 'cause I brought Lyncas initially up in our scouting for that year, and like after our other coaches were also looking at his votes, I'm like, wow, this is phenomenal. Like, his communication and his leading in the game, like, it's very good. And I already have to say, like, even in his Geo split, I think if you look at his POVs or their games and like their deeper EU Masters playoffs games, there have been moments where I feel like he is either overstepping too much or playing too fast or just not playing disciplined enough. Like, for example, I think there was a very specific Viego game against KC, if I remember correctly. I don't know if you remember, Peter, but there were timers when he could go too deep, and but I expected those wrinkles to be like smoothed out over time. But at some point, like this year, like, I have to agree, like, I still believe in this kid, but at some point it's like, how far does that get me believing in him if this keeps happening? Like, this whole, like, I mean, I agree that Vitality is a team that like has like pushes the limits often or like plays faster on certain turns where they shouldn't, and it makes the game more volatile. And this is why they're scary, but also inconsistent. And I think, like, at some point at the start of the year, like, I was thinking maybe this is just enabled by how Hilly plays, right? This is one of his strengths. Like, he just squeezes certain windows, and like, I was maybe offloading that responsibility on Lyncas because I'm like, he is a rookie, and like, maybe this is just like how they're playing right now, and this is just how it goes. But after bringing in new support at some point, like, especially with the skill set that I know he has by being so vocal and being able to like pace a game through himself and just like move the game in a certain direction, I just expected more. I will say, like, I'm still excited about him, but that goes at a certain point, it's like, okay, bro, like, when is it gonna happen? Because there were games this LEC split which were not pretty at all. There have been also really good games. Like, I think, for example, the second game against KC, like this Jin Zone Fury matchup, like, I think that was really nice. It was very good. But I mean, consistency is still something that is like necessary, or at least like to a certain degree, right? To be like a top European player, and this is just not good enough right now.
I actually think this guy has problems on a number of levels, because you can, like you did, you can judge him like in his total time in the LEC, what the expectations for, why they signed him to the team, and how he currently is playing today. And unfortunately, I don't think he gets many check marks on any of these. Like, I'm with you on that last one. He has had a few good games. Like, I agree, he had that game against Karmi Corp that was good. Obviously, the series they won against MCOR, he actually was pretty good in that one too. But the problem here is this in itself actually plays against him, which is, I'll agree with Peter. I do think it's kind of harsh to take any player and just give them Hylissang if they're a jungler and go on then, be the best jungler. It's like, who knows? Because right now, like, Hylissang, everyone's having a hard time interacting with him. But I agree, if you've seen him with Niski as well, it wasn't just a Hylissang problem. And also, forget jungle support for a moment. If you just look at how this guy plays with his solos, like, first of all, almost every time he ever had a good game is when Vitality actually looked really good, like we just described, like that fucking KOI series, etc. When he didn't play well, his solo lane has struggled way more. Like, if I contrast with the other mega rookie team of Heretics, mate, Shio, I think, has worse solo laners, and he made his solo laners look better at times. You know what I mean? Like, you can see the contrast between the two players. One is a veteran, and one still has rookie tendencies where he's fucking up. And the reason why it's criminal is because of all the things said outside the server about this player. If the story was, hey, we're just bringing up an ERL jungler and let's see if it works, I think he could maybe get away with it. But the problem was, what was the reason Mac and Pat had all publicly said to the public as to why they replaced Douglas. It's because supposedly Lyncas was like not only like the truth as a jungler, but he was going to be the shot caller and the captain of the team. And that part, I'm sorry, that part just hasn't manifested on the server. Like that's the guy I can't like. It's all everyone else is like, you're the shot caller, mate. Like that would have, surely some of that should manifest in the game. And then lastly, even though I didn't think the Douglas guy was that good, the problem was. Flip a coin who was better between the two of them. Like, the Douglas guy wasn't terrible, and that was the worst version of Vitality. So, and I see why some fans the whole time have sort of felt aggrieved that guy got kicked out of his spot. Lastly, I will just say this, though. This is where you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Remember the context of when Lyncas came to the LEC was that Carmine Corp wanted him. Like, there's actually a world right now where they'd have him in the lineup, not fucking Yike. Which, although they did dodge a bullet on that one. But the reason why it's ridiculous is, at the time, that meant if you were Vitality, this was like a steal that you got this player. Like, if this had worked out, Mac and Pad would have gotten even more credit and props and been seen as like, oh, look, they're visionaries. They even saw what Carmi didn't. But it hasn't worked out. It just hasn't worked out, mate. So I think it's a bit of a sad move, actually. I think it's a bit of a bummer because I do think he's had. This is the problem. If this was his first split, I'd go, well, focus on the good games. There was a couple. It's too many splits now, Peter. Like, you're very fair where you think people should get at least 2 splits. Yeah, but if I go the other way, if you've had like 4 splits and you still haven't really ticked over, at that point in time, maybe I have to move on, you know?
I mean, the sad thing about this is not the sad thing, but I mean, it's made people put the rose-tinted glasses back on about how well Douglas was playing.
True.
Because frankly, Douglas was not.
No,
well.
they're overrating him as well. They're doing that thing where like you love him now he's not here, but he wasn't as good as you guys remember. Come on.
Exactly, but like the thing about Lyncas is, I wouldn't be this harsh if I thought this guy didn't have potential, right? Like I'm never this harsh about like.
Bro, if you ever look at the champion, put it this way, Peter. If you look at the champions he actually plays, he plays like he thinks he is, like European Canavi or something, mate. Like he's played all the fucking like giga carry champs too. Like, but you've got to make it happen if you have those.
Yeah, no, I agree, and like I mean, I have different standards for different players, right? Like I'm not putting standards like this on Camelu after 2 splits.
Yeah.
Right? I'm putting standards like this on Lyncas because he has disappointed me.
Yes.
Right. Like and that's what I would say about it. I think he can turn it around in summer, but man, Vitality need to work out what they're going to do with jungle support in summer. Like either Niski is going to be grinding like 100 games a week minimum in his off season, or they're going to do something else because obviously it's a difficult situation for everyone, right?
Okay. I mean, similarly, with it all being about starting with framing, my bad point is going to be one that's all about historical framing. It's going to be a player from Rogue, but here's the thing, I already did Larson last week, Raqo. The player this time is another veteran. It's got to be Patrik. Mate, what a fucking whack end to a career this is. Because this guy went from, like, remember, he had all those years where the whole hype was he's the most underrated ADC in the LEC. You know, he was always like, he never got that status as top 3, but the joke is he was everyone's number 4 in the league for like 3 or 4 years. And he's another player, by the way, where your brain still doesn't remember that, like, after they do enough years, they become the veteran. He's a mega veteran at this point in time, guys. He's been around a long, long time in the LEC. In your brain, you still think he's like an uppercut years, and he's had a career. Put it this way, he's been in the LEC longer than like Expecke was in the ULCS. Like, I know that doesn't process in your brain because of how the scale works, but that's true. Like, this guy has had 1 million chances. By the way, he's had like every teammate in the bloody LEC, it feels like. And the sad thing is, he had the years where he was underrated, then he had the years where it sort of held, and the last few years, he doesn't even get mentioned anymore. Bro, people don't even mention him in Reddit threads. Like, he doesn't exist. Like, no one hates him, but no one gives a fuck about this player. And I just think to myself, there was once upon a time, if people don't know, a very real world where he was in the group with the Kazis, the Opsets of the world. He was supposed to have a chance to one day be like a G2 Fnatic player. Those days are not only long gone, but he almost seems like an irrelevant player in the league right now. Like put it this way, if he gets replaced by Rogue, I don't think there won't even be any fanfare. Like, what a kind of like underwhelming end to a career for someone who did at one point have real potential and was on real teams that were playoff squads, mixing it up, potentially could have gone to Worlds, etc. It's kind of just like such a whack ending. As someone who likes narratives, this narrative is very unsatisfying how the Patrik story's ended. What do you think, Raqo? Where are you at on Patrik?
I mean, the craziest thing to me is like I don't even feel like there's a lot of people coming for Patrick's head.
No, not at all, mate.
It's just there, you know, he just plays. But I remember when he came into the LEC, or I think maybe even was ELCS at the time as Sheriff, like it was very, very exciting player at the time. Like amazing, like solo queue demon, very good. And even in his H2K games already at the time, like he was like coming up, but like that whole stint at some point when he was playing in XL, like he was just the sole reason they were winning games at some point. I think this was around the time when they had Dan and Nuktak. I think it was that year. Like he was just like carrying that team individually. But at some point, like when I saw that Patrik was in Rogue this year, I was just like, okay, well, was there actually no one else? Like, was there actually no one else? You know,
I did hear, by the way, they had a million names first that they went for before that. He was just like the last one left us, but for real.
Yeah, like, I mean, I was just really surprised because, like, I mean, the thing is, like, to me, Patrik has been a player that never actually came to fruition, like, completely in his career. Like, he, like, not just like he didn't accomplish anything based on like the expectation that I had when he came in. Like, I agree, there were times where I expected him to get picked up by a G2 War Fnatic or a team like this, and like at least be like a team that we contest to go to Worlds. You know, I think he was in the Origin lineup at the time, right? The most underwhelming one, I think it was that year, and after, and that's when they bummed out 9th. I think it was that team.
Yep.
But that was like he has also been in teams that were expected to perform that didn't perform. But now at this point, like, what I will have to say, like, I am not very high on a lot of European ERL ADs right now. There are not a lot of standout players to me that I'm super excited about. There are some that I think are excited, but like, it's not like Caliste or, I mean, okay, I think if Rogue wanted to make a flip, I think they could have signed Rin. To be honest, I'm really high on Rin if they wanted to sign a rookie. But at this point, I'm almost like, I mean, at that point, just take the SK route and just like ditch Malvern and get a good European ERL jungler and just please get a Korean like Hansam D or anyone at that point, you know, like if that's what you're trying at that point, you know, like, as clearly this org is not trying to develop Ali talent right now, which in my opinion, they really should, because you have no fans, you're not going to Worlds, you know, at that point, like, what are you doing? Like, allegedly Larson is one of the highest paid players in league and you're bumming up 8th. I don't know how that happens, but like, if this is really what you're trying to do, then at this point, like, I don't really see it. Like, I don't understand. Like, I actually don't understand. Like, this is just confusing to me. Like, yes, on the Patrik part, but also on the Rogue side, you know, like, I just don't understand what is he doing here. Like, because I was really high on this player historically, you know, but there have been some games like where I'm just watching Rogue play and I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
No, mate, when you saw the roster for this year for Rogue, it looks like not a bad roster, just not if it's 2025. Like, the roster on paper looks great. Look at all those names, but it's not like 2 years ago, is it? You know, like, that's
exactly. The thing is also, like, when we were in like with Flag was at when we went to MSI last year, we scrimmed a lot against BFX, where Execute actually was playing in their SK team at the time, and I was just like, well, okay, like, they brought this guy back, and like, he was pretty good, you know. Like, I don't like feel like the European support pool is like mega strong. I can this guy see be really good, and maybe Patrik plays a bit better too, you know, and like maybe there's something there. And then I don't know. It's just maybe if we were 2-3 years ago, this could have been really
By
good.
the way, fair play to Execute, though. He did unintentionally provide one of the most entertaining moments of the split, which was that stupid excuse as to why he sort of said the equivalent, like, kill yourself or something, where it's like, no, in Korea it means, like, focus on yourself and you'll get, like, even though he's been in Europe for all those years, you know, where you had to do that apology for it, he said it's solo queue. Which, by the way, Azael nailed it, because that is essentially like the joke of where they go, like, KYS means, like, keep yourself safe or whatever. It's like where you lie and say that, isn't it? Like, that's why I noticed everyone's joke was a version of mine, which is where you just go, yeah, that's what I meant when I said that too, where whatever he said, like that. That's about the only interesting thing they've even done all year, mate. That's about it.
And it was probably like Rogue's most exciting thing all year.
It was.
Sadly. Exactly. Oh my God. Yeah.
So, I mean, for Patrik, I just say for him, obviously, there's a lot of people who've just come to the LEC and only seen him kind of in the last few years.
Yeah.
He's not playing the best. I'll try to say the positive things about Patrik, which is, firstly, this guy has always been a god in scrims. The reason why he keeps getting so many chances, why he's talked about as highly as he has, despite the fact that he's missed playoffs more than he's made playoffs in his career, is because he's always super good in scrims. He's always played his 2v2 is always really, really great, but never shows it on stage. I would say when he came in as a rookie, he was, I think, scouted by Veteran and Kelsey Boza on that H2K team, which literally was like the lowest budget you could possibly imagine. Really clearly on their way out. And he played there. He was in his rookie split. He was basically 1v9ing like literally every single game. And basically he has made two LEC finals. One on Excel last year, 2 years ago. The 2023
one, the one with Abadage, at the end of 2023.
He made that, and he made one on Origin, right? But never gone internationally. Okay, so that's the positives, right? Like, this is.
And he used to be a Draven God. If people, I know now with everyone thinks Hansam, he used to also be a Draven God. Where if you locked it in, you were fucked. You know, true.
Yep, Draven God, Caitlyn God. But yeah, I would say this. We talked about unrealized potential. I think this is a guy. Basically, he never met the potential that we had. That a lot of people in the scene thought because of how well he was playing in scrims. He had a good split with when he was playing with who was his support? It was
What year?
was it no the 2023 was. I just have
Who would that? Trimby, was it? No.
no.
Oh, who was
Oh
it?
wow, it was Limit. Holy moly,
Limit,
he
there
made
you go.
LEC finals with Limit. Wow. No. Okay, so I had to check that. Then wow, that was so forgettable that I even completely forgot that it was Peach and Limit who were in that LEC finals. Wow. Okay, so but yeah, obviously, I agree with everything you guys have said about the roster building for this. But I mean, obviously, like it's clear to everyone that this is the end. But and this guy never got to play internationally, never really had that many standout performances considering how long he's been a pro. But again, one of the best swim players that Europe has probably ever had. But yeah, never found a way to convert it to stage, which is a shame. That's what I would say.
Okay, let's do the last section, which is obviously the ugly. So what is ugly at the moment, Raqo?
Okay, I don't know if mine is super controversial, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I think this is the worst iteration of G2 they've ever had since it joined the LEC. It's also my personal least favorite one. I just think like
Cool.
the magic isn't there. You don't see it. Like I don't even know if it's a slump anymore. I just think it's not working, and I'm not a fan. I don't see it.
Okay. By the way, here's a joke, because I want you to expand on that more. But here's, like when a director in Hollywood gives the actor like their motivation, like, hey, you're supposed to be like a cop who lost his child. Like, think about what your wife will be going through. What I want you to do, right, is then think of this. You have to imagine right now that we don't know this yet, Raqo, but actually G2 wins this split. And when they win this split, they actually look amazing. And there's all magic in how they fight and the way. And so what you have to understand is this is now being featured. You're about to be featured in the little clip that the shitty social media guy makes, and he puts that little fucking blooper reel together where it's me going like, and Caps isn't even having a good year this year, and it's all our clips, and like you have to act as though that's what you're doing right now, because here's the thing, you're right now that they're absolute weakers, so we have to go off, and if at the end they turn it around, you just tip your hat and then you get to your shoes as footage. That is the law of equivalence in so give me some reasons why though, because I know what you mean when you say that, by the way. It's very technical.
Yeah.
They kind of have lost, it's not just players, the magic of G2 is gone, right? That feeling of like they'll win no matter what, it doesn't exist. You can tell even other players don't think so. So what are you thinking of when you say that?
I mean, for me, I'm still very high on Skumont. I feel like the thing they do with like scouting their rookie junglers, like I think they have always doing an incredibly good job. For me, I obviously like it's not like it's probably known right now. I think Caps is having one of his weaker years so far. Sure, he's had some standout games, but like his overall average floor and baseline has been not what many people have had expected. I think, for example, last year there were weeks or series where Caps had weaker performances. Like I can think, for example, it was their summer final game against the Mad Lions KOI at the time, where he was just like not performing very well. But overall, like at the end, still G2 as a concept as a whole last year was still like a staple to be reckoned with. Like it was like it was a powerhouse still. But this year, I am not high on Labrov at all. I used to historically actually be quite high on Labrov, but at this point, like I just don't really see it anymore. I'm just like not really a fan. And I think even BB Caps and Hansama, all of them are like with their historical like ceilings and like their general performance, like I'm just disappointed because I expect way more of these players. I'm not just saying like these players are washed up. Like there have been games, where these players still have stand-up performances, but like if you look at G2 in the Spain Roadshow, for example, in their series against the Giant X against the KOI, like even like I saw a tweet about that recently about like their whole, I think it was Vega V2, about the finesse they had in draft and like the creativity and the spots they had. Like even right now, I feel like that's not really like the edge they have anymore either. So I mean, I'm historically still a massive G2 fan, and I hope they get it together. But at this point, I don't really see it. Like I fear the worst for them.
I mean, it's very brave to make that take right before playoffs.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm about to shoot myself in the foot here, but
I love it.
But no. I mean, let's be clear, right? They haven't been good this split. Again, I will put on the mitigating circumstances hat, which is that they played half their games four fifths of their games this season on the road. which is in a sense even more concerning, right? Because you're playing in front of a live audience, and instead of that hyping you up, it seems to like make you retreat into your shell, which is scary. Like that is really, really scary. But yeah, Labrov is a guy who was, to me, he was either the best or the second best supporter in the league last year, right? On BDS, and this year he's just looked like a shadow of himself. He's making mistakes that he wasn't making last year. It feels like he was the main voice on or one of the main voices on BDS, and now he's like a third or fourth voice on G2, and he hasn't fit well into that role. I feel that Skewmont has had some good signs, also run it down a bit, but has had some good games. Caps have been really inconsistent. BB, compared to even Winter Split, he's just been really, really rough this split compared to last split. So it's not looking good for G2. Yeah, I would put this as their second worst roster. Like there's one roster with I think it was 2022, the one with Reckless, right?
Was no, 2021 was the Reckless one.
2021, which was pretty awful, but this one
they were still like top of the league though.
Yeah, they were still top of the league.
At the end they failed. Third and fourth.
It was just at the end they failed, mate.
The second and fourth, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm with you on this. But let's see how they do in playoffs. Maybe this is a team that likes it when the crowd is cheering for them, right? Which is not a good thing for G2, because G2 have typically thrived when the crowd is cheering against them, and they've really enjoyed playing into that heel role as an organization. But yeah, I don't see any creativity. I don't see any they can't bully teams in the same way that they used to bully them in the past, and steal their lunch money, because nobody's taking it anymore, right? So yeah.
Go on.
Wasn't it also KC had the chance to choose MKOI or G2, right, for their upper bracket rival? I think that you choose between both, and they ended up choosing KOI. So I think KOI has had shaky games over the split too. That's not a secret either, but it's still an indication that KC still would rather still dodge G2 in playoffs. I understand this team historically has gotten it together, right? They have, but based off right now, all the the samples we have of this split, also the thing is, it's not like they had a bad best of one regular season. They're playing best of three fearless games where we expect a team of these veterans actually to stand out, and yeah, it's just disappointing. I also agree that historically I've been quite high on Labrov, mega solo queue grinder, always top 10 on the ladder very often, but even I think right now he's not that high in solo queue, if I recall correctly. I don't think I've seen him top 10 one last year. He was mega high on ladder all year, and maybe it's one of those players when his communication role and his role in the team shift, his performance drops. This historically has happened to some players, but I just don't see it right now.
By the way, that's also one angle I have as well, which goes, even when I'll even give you some copium, that's some pure G2 hater copium. Here you go. The reason why I think Carmine Corp chose MKOI and not G2 is actually the opposite. I don't think it was them going, well, we've got to give credit to G2 still. They're good. I actually think for real, it's a mind game that if you think about it, as of right this moment, the only thing left that can actually beat Fnatic isn't Carmine Corp. It's actually the fucking G2 logo. That's all they're losing to at the moment. And I actually think it's the last fucking, just try that. Fucking put them against G2. They somehow always inexplicably lose to them. I think that's almost why you picked it, because put it this way, if you had to say when would be the most likely point for Fnatic to fuck up, it would be if in the first round they play G2 and then Caps goes off and then Humanoid did all the PTSD, fucking bring back that meme of that dog looking at those cakes. It was the famous one everyone used to post on the internet. But it's just copium, guys. That, I'm sorry, even though everyone said this a million times for Fnatic, I think that is done. I think Fnatic just is the best team. I think, by the way, what will show you that the magic is gone is this series here, because traditionally, you're right, that should be the bogeyman. No, it isn't going to be the case. I actually think this time round, there's a world Fnatic just even just sweep them, mate. Just 3-0 them. That's totally plausible. And I definitely agree. I think you've nailed it best. It's not even Notice what we haven't said is that, the GM fucked up on G2. No, I actually totally understand why the GM'd all these moves. In isolation, I don't think any of the moves were bad moves. I just think it hasn't worked out like they hoped it would. And the worst part is what you said at the beginning, that they don't have the magic. It's not they don't have good players. They still have good players, except for Labrov. I think almost every player, in theory, could still be top 3 or top 4 his role, depending on what you talk. In fact, I'd even say the controversial takers, I think Skumond might still actually just be the best jungler or the second best jungler. Like, he's actually having an awesome time. The problem is the team is just a Skumond team that plays his style, and at the moment he's one of the players that has the problem under pressure on the big live games and on stage. And that's another thing. The old G2, that's when the power spike would be activated, as if you put them in front of the crowd. This one, I'm with you. They've looked half as good in front of the crowd and all of it. Like I said it on the past episode, I do not believe there's any world they would have lost that GX game in a studio. I think they would have just won that one, mate. But the way that you could see the difference on their faces even when they played in the live crowd, and crucially, that's it. It's like the magic or the chemistry isn't like past G2 lineups, which is, by the way, I will say this, if you're the GM, I can't blame you for that. It's impossible to know the chemistry until the lineup actually plays. It's why that whole topic that we all use in the off seasons of like upgrade and that's not even a real thing. Like, it's only from the outside we can say that. There are players who are like weak players mechanically who sometimes add way more to a team. You just don't know the chemistry of what they're doing behind the scenes or what they bring to the comms even, or when they get. And by the way, the Labrov one is also a really tricky one, because I agree. It's really easy now in hindsight to go, hey, he was a big fish in a small pond in BDS and everything was the way he wanted it, but now that he's like further down the pecking order, he's not as good in G2. The problem with that is, what did we all say when he was in BDS? Like, get this man a real team, get him off this squad, put him on Fnatic or G2 and they'll win the league. Like, that's just the nature of the league, I'm afraid. That's what always happens when you're an outsider and you don't really know the dynamics of what you're doing inside the thing. Because I have to say, as of right this moment, this will be a weird angle and it is biased, but I am a biased individual. It's a fucking opinion show. I actually think Labrov in G2 now is another fucking check mark against Striker from BDS's coaching record. This guy's the Labrov whiffs from it. No one's ever gotten that performance out of Labrov ever in his whole career. That's what this. Remember, this guy came in 1 million years ago too, by the way. He was in that Vitality with comp 1 billion fucking years ago. He was in loads of different teams, and for most of his career, he was another person everyone said, oh, it's Grims, he's amazing. Oh, you should see how good this player is. Look at him, it's all cute. And then you never saw it in the LEC, and I used to think, why do people gaslight me? But then when I saw him in BDS, I was like, fuck, this guy's the truth. Like, this is the shit. Like, look how, but it's only ever been in that BDS lineup I've ever seen that, I'm afraid. In this team, he's just been whatever. So I agree. It's just gone. You even ask this. This is a crazy point right now. First of all, here's how you know when Caps isn't having a good year. Oh, no one will ever come out and say Caps is having a bad year. They just don't say Caps is the hands down best player in the league. Who's number 2? That he's not even in those discussions anymore, boys. When we have the discussions about upset and Caliste and Canna, why does no one ever put Caps' name in there? Because for Caps, this is a fucking mid-ass year, mate. Like, this reminds me of that like early 2022 where it was looking whack and everyone thought like Fnatic would win the fucking league when they had like the humanoid Razork lineup the first time around. And Caps had that like really underwhelming start to the year before he started cooking. The solos of G2 aren't bad, but they don't even have the best solo laners in the league. I don't even know that they would. Like, wouldn't everyone say Kami Corpse is better right now? I would say this. Here's the problem for G2. They don't have, as far as I can tell, one strength above anyone in any area of the game. You even nailed it on the drafting, by the way. We all thought the same thing. Bro, hey, watch out, guys. It's Fearless Draft. Dylan Falco's playground. He hasn't even got a chance to play. If anything, all the past years, he had the best teams ever for this format. This year, he has the team that doesn't even make sense in that format. Like, I actually think Fearless is worse for him right now. I think, if anything, he'd be better off having normal meta, and then every now and then Broken Blade pops a cheeky weird picking or something like that, you know, like, it's actually not working to do the fucking Fearless Draft. This is the 1 year, sadly, you probably didn't want Dylan Falco cooking in the Fearless Draft, because actually they've gotten cooked in some of these fucking drafts, quite frankly. So no, I'm with you. I think it's really sad too, because even though, again, pause, obviously now they could just magically turn it around and win. I don't think they will though, boys. I think that is done. We're not actually going to be in that video I just described earlier on social media where that G2 LOL account's laughing at all our faces and all the fans like, ha, it's badly. Yes, Peter Dun, that's why you're not in the LEC anymore. Not that anymore. That's not even going to happen. Much like a Caps did, it will be forgotten that we were totally right about all this.
Yep, that's how it is.
Right, okay then, Peter, what is your ugly point? What we're going with there?
Okay, so my ugly point, actually, this is one I kind of want to have a wider discussion about, and what it's like in other esports. But for me, my ugly point is KC fans booing, right? Booing the guest team.
Booing everything. If you don't know, they even booed when it wasn't Kami Cop playing the first game. They just booed everyone. Like,
I mean,
okay.
Okay, so
I love it.
again, let's do the mitigating circumstances. Casey and Vitality, there's a lot of bad blood there,
course.
especially over the Lyncas transfer,
Yeah.
especially over all of the times in the ERLs. There's a lot of bad blood. G2 are the team that they see as their main rivals. But why the fuck are you booing SK? Like, I mean, what did SK do to you? You know, like they're just like the innocent puppies. You know, they're not. You're not even playing them that weekend. They're there to be the sacrificial lambs. Still had a shot at playoffs, you know, before that weekend. I'll just say, but like, why would you even boo SK? They even have your ex-player on it. Like, I think they cheered Bukada, but they like.
Oh, they did, right?
Yeah. But like firstly, okay, so I found that really distasteful. I really like what compared to the Madrid. I think it wouldn't have been as bad if Casey did their roadshow first and then Madrid, then KOI did theirs afterwards, right? Now, the fact that KOI was cheering for everyone, it was like a celebration. Everyone was very happy. You know, it was really, really hype. I think.
Okay, wait 1 sec. There was one player who was not celebrated in Madrid, actually.
Okay. What was it?
It was Upstead. That was the only player who was not
playoff
cheered.
beef, was it?
But that was like that was the super beef, yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, still, but that's like a specific circumstance, right?
Fair enough.
But I was there that weekend actually one day, and it was like I feel like everyone was getting cheered. I think it was a good experience for the players. I feel like also like when Caps came, the whole stadium just erupted like it was a Spanish player because it's just such a European legend, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I mean, the thing which rubs me the wrong way is when they're like booing the Hans Sammer victory interview and things like that. Like that's just like, not to me. It's not something that I like. But I just widen the discussion quickly on this, which is that. But people will say, "Oh, you know, in conventional sports they boo all the time. You know, why is this not okay?" And I think for esports fans that maybe are new to this, and I'm curious to hear your take on how things are in Counter Strike and other esports like this. But you know, why do we cheer and why do we not boo the other team? It's because I think basically it's following the Korean model, right? Like League of Legends copies a lot of our habits we copy from Counter-Strike and not Counter-Strike, from StarCraft, right? And what's the thing there? You respectfully cheer for the other team, or you could say nothing. Like the worst thing that you do, even when the Koreans and the Chinese are playing each other, often it's just silence, right? It's not booing, it's just like you just don't clap, right? But as a mark of respect, you cheer for everyone, right? And this is how historically it's always been in League of Legends, because just as a mark of respect. And this is why when people see KC being a new org coming in, you know, bringing all of these fans, the KC fans are thinking of it within the football context. You know, of course we're going to boo the other team, right? But in League of Legends specifically, it hasn't been that way because we copy the Asian model. And you can maybe judge, is that what we should be doing? You know, should we have different culture within the season? But it's why people have such an issue with this booing, because it's different from conventional sports, right?
Yes.
And I don't know whether this is a League of Legends thing or not, but it rubs me the wrong way. It rubs me the wrong way, right? Because I've been in esports since basically in League of Legends since basically season 1, and these kind of things are ingrained in my mind. So I have an issue with it. And, you know, I much prefer the Madrid roadshow. And frankly, like, I'm not saying that Casey have to conform to the standards of what is normal in expected behavior from fans. Although, you know, with Faker and people like that, like, I think you should do it as a mark of respect. Frankly, for Caps, I don't give a shit, right? I think it's a bit mean to do it to SK, but like, if you're going to do it to G2, I don't care. But for me, I'm not going to like it, right? And I'm going to be vocal about saying that I really, really prefer how KOI did their roadshow compared to how Casey did this. Sorry.
Okay.
Right.
Take whatever you want from that, Raqo. What are you gonna?
I'm just like thinking for a second, because like I was trying to think back, because a few months ago the Call of Duty World Championship was hosted here in Madrid as well, and I was there, and I was trying to remember what happened, and I think it was also booing to both sides, if I recall correctly, even though the Spanish team was like, the thing is like the big teams were there, Toronto Ultra, which is KOI, it's Heretics, it was 100 Thieves and maybe FaZe. I think it was these, and there was some more teams though. I don't remember exactly the orgs because they have the whole city thing. It's a little bit confusing, to be honest, branding wise, but I feel like their teams were getting booed. But I think also the reason why also the whole thing, how the KC started, was last year at the Red Bull event, right? When Faker was getting booed by the KC fans. This is how everything started. And I think at this point, we're getting to a point where a lot of small things are stockpiling with the KC fan base. It's like online harassment, the booing of Faker, now this, I think like it's all becoming a little bit much. But the thing is, like, to me, the booing an opposing team in isolation on your home ground, like, I have a very strong traditional sports background. Obviously, like, this varies differently from sport to sport, right? Because like you might say this is normal in traditional sport, but if you're going to an I don't know, let's say a tennis match, nobody's booing there, you know? Like, this is very, very formal. Or if you're going like to golf, but like if you go to like football or like, let's say American football in the US, but like, for example, even baseball and basketball is actually quite different. So like, it depends a little bit on the culture around the game, like just like the general, like the phenomenon in itself. But for example, if you, yes, in Europe, if you compare it to football, to me, this is very, it's not like an outstanding event to happen, you know? Obviously, the point you might make is like, is this the right place for that? I think the only problem that I have is that, I mean, like, I've worked with players for so long, and like you said, the same thing, Peter. You see so many different people over time, and sometimes for certain players, I worry a little bit in these situations how they actually handle this. You know, like I almost feel bad. You know, like I've had players where they are just like children, like they're actually children. You know, and like just dealing with these moments and like experience so much like negativity and hate. Like I just feel for them, you know. Like I know, like for me myself, like I'm 26 years old right now. I feel like a confident adult. Like I had so much hate this year. I don't even really care, bro. Like you can tell me anything, it's all fine, you know. But sometimes like I can really feel for the players, and like if I see like a player like Bukata who's like a rookie there, or like even like Raqo and Genix and like the Korean, like you're just like SK, you're pulling up, you're like, oh, this is so exciting. We're gonna be on KC's turf and we get to be part of the roadshow. This is gonna be fun in front of a crowd, and then you come there and like, it's such an unwelcome experience. I just feel for them, you know. I think it's really tough, but at the same time, I do not think this. To me, this is not as big of a problem as it is. Like, sure, you might argue, is League of Legends the right place? But at the same time, this could just be a cultural shift that's happening in the European ecosystem right now, based on the fan bases that are being integrated. You know, like let's say hypothetically, if KOI and KC were to play against each other in an arena, I think this would be a phenomenal place to be. This would be so exciting, you know, either way. So I personally don't have like I was just trying to explain my whole process, like how I think about it, right? But like I don't have like a very strong negative opinion. The only thing I sometimes worry about a little bit is the players, but and how they like handle these situations, because it's like emotionally quite tough, you know. Like if there's like thousands of people screaming at you or booing you, you know, like I can imagine that's hard. But from a product and like a cultural shift in the industry and the fan base industry, I don't think it's necessarily a very bad thing.
My problem is this ties into the topic we actually had as the ugly point last week from Crusher, which was he actually had the same thing about homestands, but his point was that it does technically affect the competitive integrity of the league, because essentially you're giving some teams a home game and then other teams like G2 don't get a home game. They're always on the road or in a studio. So you are potentially affecting the results. I would say also that framing is where I would approach this topic, because I do think it's tricky. Like, here's the problem. I do think if you have teams like, obviously, if you have a French or a Spanish fan base, their go-to analog is going to be football. Like that is the thing that they care about in real life in that sense. And as people know, in countries like that or in Italy, like football is religion. Like there's a reason why the ultras there aren't just like, I'm a really big fan. They're like, I will actually kill you in real life because you didn't score 2 goals in like the derby. Like that's a real thing. Like if people don't know, probably the best example ever, if you're American, look this up and you'll get a sense of how extreme it can get, is look up the videos online of where, like, I know this happened to Milan once. I think it might even have happened to Juventus. It's the videos where there's an actual tradition in European football in Italy that if you're doing really badly on like a legacy all-time great org, they will actually block the exits to the arena and the captain of the team has to come and basically be berated in public by the ultras, like the leaders of the ultras. Almost like your dream fan base, T1. Like instead of sending a truck, this is like if Joe Marsh had to actually come with Faker and they both had to listen to you actually tell them a bunch of bollocks like, you should play Goober because he's, you know, trying really hard in school. If that actually, that's like what's like. So I will say, if that's your president, Carmine Corp fans aren't even that bad compared to that, mate. They're just like, they're on some amateur shit. My problem is this, is you have to ask the question of what are these matches? My issue here is this, right? They're not technically home and away matches, guys. These aren't actually like, hey, it's in your stadium. If you have the fans, you can get booed. No, essentially what you're doing here, if we're being real, is, look, I'll give you a consideration. Obviously, you're making up most of the fan base and you are the reason we can have the homestand if you're the home crowd. So on some level, we have to let you do some of the booing fan fan base material. But I think essentially, the quick way to say it would be, I would sort of structure how you do it. So what I would say is this: I would actually have for real, because I can tell you they do this in tennis. We did this actually in Counter-Strike at E-League when we used to have a live audience. We had a woman who was almost like the equivalent of the warm-up act before the show went live, and she would just tell you, and I can tell you they definitely tell you this in tennis in like the Australian Open, the French Open. Someone comes out before the match starts and says things like, cheer between the points, but do not cheer when someone's about to serve. I can tell you in E-League, they would tell you like, look, don't give away information in a 1v1 or something in Counter-Strike, like don't shout he's behind you or something. Cheer aside from that, the second the round ends, boo someone, cheer someone. I actually really think for real, you have to basically frame to the people when it's appropriate, because my problem is it's not a home and away game. Like these are actually, it's the other way around. It's a very key framing, which is you're the host of these games. Now notice how different that is, because that's what's different, Peter. If this is home and away, and I'm at Anfield and we're Liverpool fans, but of course we're going to tell you you're all shit, fuck you. By the way, we know you're going to do that to us when we go to your ground. But if instead it's like we're hosting the Euros in England, it'd be pretty insane if all the fans just booed every single other country 24/7. You have to understand, as a host, you have to be a little bit magnanimous and sort of respectful. So what I would say is this: I would even have for real someone like Kometo or someone come on stage before the match and tell them, right, when it's our team playing, boo however much you want. When it's like after the game, boo. When it's the walkout, boo. When it's like, but here's the thing: when, for example, Faker walks out, cheer him. When it's an interview with the other player when they've won the game, just don't boo that. You know what? It's when you don't boo is more important than when you boo, is my point. Because by the way, the idea of a home game booing to like put the other team off, that I think that worked for the GX fans. I think that's why they beat G2. I also think, by the way, you can also boo in the sense of intimidating the opponent. That's like almost a pantomime effect of like, hey, we're going to get you. Because as long as you do it like those KC fans do, where like they'll boo Remain, who's one of their own, but he's also, they're doing it sort of like wink, wink, we secretly love you too. Like that's fine. I never have a problem with that. But I'm with you. If it's like an interview after the game with the guy who won the match, at that point in time, could we at least have, even if it's shit, like, a splatter of like mild golf claps or something, like something classy, a little bit of decorum. I'm not asking for too much here. You can phone it in, but give us a little bit, because I agree with you. I think it's a difficult topic though, Peter, because I know what you mean. If people think of it as a home game, this is all totally fine. This is what you should do. I think that's why I think when you say about like hosting like Worlds or something in Korea, Koreans are aware that you're also representing Korea. You don't want to be seen as like rude hosts and fucking dickheads to everyone, do you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not about the hostility, right? Like, I think that, my first experience of Western League of Legends was Brazil versus Turkey, and fucking hell, you think
imagine.
France, Spain is bad? Like, Brazil-Turkey was, oh my God, like, the KC fans aren't saying they're going to kill you. Like, the Turkish fans are literally like, and I don't speak Portuguese, so I don't know what the Brazilian fans were saying, but I'm sure they were saying as good as they got, right? Like, you would go...
They also have a chant, Peter, that is the equivalent of "you will die." They also have a chant like that, don't worry.
You actually, like, yes. you actually like, worried for your safety. Right. And, I don't care about that too much. Like, what I care about, like, for me, my criticism is not that. If you want to make a hostile atmosphere for G2, you're playing against G2, you're playing against Vitality, go and fuck them up. Like vocally don't like
figuratively, of course, yeah.
But like if you're behaving like that towards SK, like who gives a shit? Like I mean, like it takes away from the hatred. Like in Brazil, they were never booing like Vietnam, right? Because the rivalry wasn't there, right? It takes away from the
you're cheapening the effect in a way, right?
Exactly, the weapon, right?
Yeah,
agreed. The weaponization of your crowd, right? If you just behave,
I know what you mean. But listen, Peter, you almost need to tell them this: SK don't actually deserve to be, as in they haven't earned it. You only want to boo the really good teams that are our rivals, right? Not SK for fuck's sake.
Exactly, right. And I mean, for me, that I think is the issue, right? Like, because frankly, some of my best memories, I was working for however many years, for like a decade or something, right? But my best memories were like playing against Turkey, Brazil versus Turkey. Like, holy fuck, those were really intense games. And I think that is good. But like you said, when we went to the international wildcard event, it wasn't that every team was treated the same, right?
Right.
You would treat some teams in a certain way and some teams in another way, and I think that's the nuance that is that is kind of being lost here, right?
No, booing SK is like booing the fucking special needs kids that come out and take the penalties at halftime in football. Like, come on, man, save it for the other team. Also, shout out to SK. You put yourself in that position, not me, mate. If you don't want that joke to be made about you, fucking make the playoffs. Right, the last point of the show, I warned you, Peter. So you know what? This is just for you, mate. This is a personal one for you. Because as you said, put it this way, this is how little I give a fuck about the tiebreaker. I still don't know the tiebreaker rules are. So I'm not actually sure, Peter. Did they need to just beat Rogue? Did they need to win one extra game? Regardless, the same point applies. Do you know how delicious, as someone who loves narratives, Peter, do you know how utterly finger-licking good, delicious it is that the reason why at the end of the split Vitality isn't in the playoffs, and I'm telling you right now, by the way, I would way rather see Vitality than Heretics, probably even GX. I actually do think they're a team that showed real potential. The ceiling of their game sometimes very exciting. It's not only that they lost to Rogue, which is unforgivable in LEC, but remember that game too, Peter, that fucking Raqo Yasuo pick, which was the game 2-1, that will live in infamy, motherfucker. Because one, if he didn't lose that one, it could have been game 3, he could have won. Secondly, you shouldn't lose to Rogue anyway. But like that pick, that crazy ego pick, in one of the worst drafts I've seen for a Yasuo pick as well, that is now in your mind. That's the reason he didn't make the playoffs. Like, because you look at who else they beat, Peter. They beat some good teams. They lost mainly only to the ones they're supposed to. That is the series that stands out like a sore thumb. And unfortunately, in the end, look, it's obviously also losing this tiebreaker to Rex, but they didn't even need to be in that, is the worst part of it all. So, what do you think? That's why I put it in ugly, though. I do not actually think Vitality's a bad teammate. Like, I actually do think they showed and the joke of the Nako guys, even he actually showed real potential during the split. But fucking hell, that one, that's the one that's going to keep you up all night for like a month now, mate. You're going to be thinking about that one for a while. What do you think, Raqo? You go first, mate. What do you think of this? Like, Vitality, essentially losing to Rogue is what cost them this playoff spot.
I mean, yes, it's true, but like it doesn't actually also work like that at the same time, right? Like,
sure,
like there's like a lot of things leading up to it, right? Like the thing is, when they make that decision at the time, they would never take into consideration that they're potentially lose if they
yeah, of course,
they're not going to make it, right? Like this doesn't really work like that. But I mean, I think like probably like at the time they just had an approach to like give certain players like more trust or like more confidence, and but I doubt any of those players will look back at that game picking Yasuo there of that diminishing their chance of making playoffs. Right? I would not feel that way. I don't know if they will. Maybe they will, right? Like it's hard for me to say, but that game was gross for sure. But like I mean, I'm sure Peter knows Nako is like a crazy Yasuo player. You know, like he's insane on this jab. And I mean, I think like sure there against Jace, like it's not like that good, but like my defense for like teams that make like skeptical decisions usually is it's like maybe doing really well in scrims, you know, like maybe they had a lot of success in this matchup, you know. It's but like I agree to a certain degree that like yes, okay, they should not have lost against Rogue. Rogue won 2 series to split, right? One against Vitality and one against at the start against let me remember, but. Yes, they should have lost that. But I think there are many more games where there are certain players at certain moments, either Niski's games or Lyncas games, which could have also like increased the outcome. Like I think as you said before, like yes, if they would have won one more game, I think they could have made it, if I'm sure. But
I think so.
I think so, yeah. So
yeah, I think the tiebreaker worked in their favor, right? So I think if they won one more game, I don't know exactly how they would have done it with that game, but I think one more game would have put them where GX are. So it would have been GX versus Heretics. I'm pretty sure would have been the tiebreaker.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's funny. So additional context. Like I defended that Yasuo pick when they picked it. I think on this very show, I was like, yeah, you know, you want to give the rookies a chance to express themselves. But yeah, fair enough, though. And I mean, like, it's...
And you know what? I'll be charitable. In the moment, if you are going to test playing that, you think it's fucking Rogue, who cares, right? I know what you mean. But the problem is, just in hindsight, it looks really bad. That's pretty sweet. That's the game you wish you had back now, right? If you could take a game back now immediately.
I mean, it's hilarious because I mean, for additional context, like I was going full rookie. You know, you've got to give him the chance. But yeah, I mean, of course, like I mean, they would love to have that game back right now. I mean, holy moly! But it just goes to show, like every single game matters. You know, maybe you shouldn't let your rookie express himself too much. Which is actually fair, you know, for fair news for calling it out because I completely forgotten about that until you mentioned it.
And also, I'll add this as well, Peter. At least learn how at the LPL were the masters of how you fuck with the best of three. You can let him do the pick, Peter, if we're 1-0 up. He can't do it when we're 0-1 down. That's not even how the rules work. You all know if you watch the LPL. Oh, you can, if you're BLG or you're some night team and you win game 1, you do whatever you want in game 2, mate, because there's a game 3 coming. But the difference is you don't do it when you're down 0-1. When you're down 0-1, you protect your job, mate. That's what the LPL coach does. He drafts mega cynically on a 0-1 game. I'll tell you what, they look like they're in World's Finals on 0-1. I'll tell you right now.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy because so this is going to bite me in the ass, but like I think KOI are going to go to MSI, and I think which is like a controversial thing, but I think that Vitality are going to end the split beating a team that I think is going to go to MSI, and they're still not even going to make to play in a best of 3, no less. So yeah, the. Maybe that's one for next week, but like like Vitality have shown glimpses, but you know, is it the disrespect in the end that ends up costing them? I mean, maybe. So yeah, I guess they live by knack, die by knack. I mean, I'll say the one positive thing which comes out of all of this, which is that Knack is never going to make that mistake in the rest of his career.
True.
Sure.
Maybe they'd set themselves a world spot for next year, for next play, you know? Hypothetically.
Yeah, exactly.
But
scaling, they're scaling, you know?
I mean, the thing is, like, I think their biggest flaw still was their inconsistency overall on certain individual players or like as a group, you know? So, like, in the end, yeah, that game was gross, you know? Like, I think they maybe some will look back at that. I mean, I've had drafts or games like that in my career where I was sometimes a year later, I'm still like, oof. But, I mean, in the bigger picture, like, sure, like every game does matter, right? Like, that's like the sad part as well. Like, the thing is, the splits aren't that long. Like, this is also like, and like, this is something that I was considering bringing up that I think is just also a major problem, that regular seasons are too short, so there's not enough time for development. But there's also like a lot of pressure on individual games. So with the best of 3, yes, it's better than before where you had 9 best of 1s, but even so, still, like every game really does matter in the end, and that's maybe just how it's supposed to be right now, sadly.
I also do think it's kind of narratively fitting, though, because actually this is who Vitality was. Yes, there were days when they actually looked like they could be like the 4th or 5th best team, but then there was days when they would just fuck around, and then a player would play badly, the team didn't come together, and then they'd have no macro and they would just lose. Like, it's actually, look, I would have still rather they just stole the last playoff spot. I just enjoyed watching them play, but I actually think it's not totally unfair they don't, and if anything, it really sets you for summer. You know what you have to do now. Now you know exactly how it's all set up, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.